Andrew Cuomo, the authoritarian, strikes again. He's been on our minds a lot lately. Not that we want him to be there, but he just keeps making bad decisions or thinking that he can without any sort of repercussion from the general public or law enforcement or the rest of the United States. Now, I know that we're not able to necessarily cause there to be repercussions for him, but at least we can open the eyes of other people that maybe have the power to do so. So let's start here. But first, let me update you on the previous video I made regarding Andrew Cuomo taking a pay raise while everyone else was in the middle of a wage freeze or potentially in layoffs. So there's been an update to that released by the New York Post, in which they walked it back, saying that Andrew Cuomo announced that he would also ask other state lawmakers to defer their wage increase, their raise, through an executive order.
I'm going to ask them to defer their raises and not take a raise, given the overall financial picture, for the same rationale that we didn't do a raise. I understand there's a disconnect in the law, but I'm going to ask the commissioners, myself, the other electeds, not to take a raise this year. And then I'll do an EO to that effect. Because it's the same rationale as not giving a raise to the other people, Nick.
But I'm not walking it back all the way, because he said this on the 18th as far as what's being reported. And he has yet to release any sort of executive order or even piggyback on that previous statement and double down on this deferment of raises. So until he does so, it's all talk and no action. He's going to take that money. The other lawmakers are going to take that money. And the rest of you can screw off because you don't matter. We're all pawns. You know, they're the elites. They get to make the decisions. They're the authoritarian, power-hungry governors and lawmakers, and we're just peons. So, not walking it back. He's as of right now, he has yet to release any sort of executive order, any sort of policy note or statement since the date that he claimed he would. He's still scheduled to get another pay raise while everyone else is suffering. So just keep that in mind as we talk about the rest of these news articles surrounding Andrew Cuomo, Mr. Tyranny himself. So Andrew Cuomo, and if you remember, not that long ago, because it was just Thanksgiving, Andrew Cuomo put forth an executive order or emergency action which restricted gatherings of more than 10 people, even in the home for family for Thanksgiving, in a private setting. This isn't in a business setting. This isn't in a commercial setting. This is in your own home. You were not allowed to have more than 10 people. And if you did, he tasked law enforcement with enforcing this rule and potentially arresting or fining or what have you the people that were to break this new policy. And I gotta say, I was happy. I was very happy to see that multiple police departments, unions, representatives came out and said, no, we're not going to do this because this is not constitutional. How are we expected to uphold this unconstitutional action that you're putting forth that only stands to hurt the people that we're responsible for protecting? And as a matter of fact, the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, they released, I believe it's a social media post where they're addressing their concerns here, concerns that were brought up by an anonymous person asking about the executive order. And it's a bunch of stuff about the executive order and how it limits people to 10 or fewer or what have you. But at the very bottom, they say, with regard to the Thanksgiving executive order, the Fulton County Sheriff's Office will not be enforcing it against our county residents. Frankly, I am not sure it could sustain a constitutional challenge in court for several reasons, including your house is your castle. And as sheriff with a law degree, I couldn't in good faith attempt to defend it in court, so I won't. Right there, that's enough for me to regain some trust in law enforcement in New York. My local law enforcement's great. I have no concerns about whether or not they would act against the general public with unconstitutional laws and regulations. even as much as our current one tries to throw these mask mandates and things like that. But that's small fries compared to what Andrew Cuomo's trying to do. You also have the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department. In response to numerous inquiries about whether the sheriff's office intends to enforce Governor Cuomo's executive order limiting the number of guests at Thanksgiving gatherings to 10 people or less, the Saratoga County Sheriff's Office will not do so. Sheriff Michael H. Zerlo commented, "We've seen an increase in a variety of all call types and have to prioritize. I can't see how devoting our resources to counting cars in our citizens' driveway or investigating how much turkey and dressing they've purchased is somehow for public good. I encourage everybody to act responsibly," Sheriff Zerlo stated. "On behalf of the men and women of the Saratoga County Sheriff's Office, I wish you the happiest of Thanksgivings and a Merry Christmas." They're not going to do it, Cuomo. You can try as you might, but they don't care. They swore an oath to defend the Constitution and against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, I might be quoting my military oath, but maybe I believe the law enforcement oath is very similar. I know they swore an oath to the Constitution just like I did. So these actions that you're putting in place, using fear as a tool to convince people that it's okay for them to call the police on their neighbors for having gatherings, creating distrust amongst our neighbors and our local friends and family. It's just not a good idea. And I'm happy that law enforcement has said, no, that's a bad idea and we're not going to do it. It's unconstitutional. You can shove off. But now in the news, Andrew Cuomo. Now, I think there's an agenda behind this, and it's not what you see on the surface, what I'm about to say. There's an article headlined in the New York Post. It says, "Cuomo looking to close loophole, allowing bad cops to keep police credentials." As you read through this, on the surface, it sounds like a good idea. It sounds like they're just trying to keep bad cops off the street. And I think everyone could get behind that. Law enforcement, most police officers would get behind that. No one wants to have bad eggs in their bunch because it spoils the rest of us. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on Sunday said he is looking to close a loophole that could allow a cop accused of misconduct in one police department to get a job in a different police department. The governor, all right, whatever, that doesn't matter. But did you notice he's saying accused of misconduct? These people aren't found guilty of it. So what Andrew Cuomo is trying to do is close a loophole, but he's trying to manipulate it based on how this is written. This might be misleading a little bit, but I'm assuming based on this, because it's Andrew Cuomo and his actions have been intolerable at best, that he's planning to use this to then throw accusations at police officers that he doesn't like. Maybe police officers that refuse to enforce his unconstitutional executive orders. It wouldn't be crazy if that started happening. If, let's say, this Sheriff Michael Zerlo, let's say Cuomo closes this loophole, and then 3 months from now, Sheriff Zerlo is accused of assaulting a suspect, or accused of misconduct with a fellow officer. Anything. It's just an accusation, and anyone can accuse anyone of anything at any goddamn time. This guy would lose his police credentials. He would lose his ability to do the job that he has spent his entire career doing and be expected to somehow just be okay with that and figure it out. So whether or not that's the case, whether or not that's what Cuomo is intending by closing this loophole, which he does so, allegedly in good faith, it sure seems like the timing is odd. Within a week of being told that his police will not enforce his unconstitutional orders, he's now releasing statements saying that he's going to close this loophole that allows them to strip police of their credentials if they're accused of misconduct, so that way they would no longer be eligible for employment at another police department, essentially just erasing them from law enforcement entirely. And that's not to say that these were good or bad cops. They're just cops that were accused. It's not a good look. Now, on the surface, though, they talk about it as a way to prevent police from staying on the job after committing workplace misconduct. One of the stories that they reference is one about a 17-year-old girl that was encountered during a police stop who allegedly excuse me, who allegedly was coerced or forced into sexual acts with an officer. Now, I don't know if this officer was found guilty or not, but what I do know is they're trying to use this as a cause for preventing police from being able to keep their credentials and getting a job at another department. But this officer, according to this story, even though he applied at several other departments, never found another job in policing. He in his comment, he says that he is out of the police field. So, I mean, is it in good faith? Maybe that Cuomo wants to close this loophole. Is it used for another agenda? Maybe. I mean, we know Cuomo. We know as of late he has appeared more and more tyrannical, more authoritarian, and more like a dictator. But what's funny about that is Mr. Authoritarian himself, Mr. Dictator himself, is calling his law enforcement officers dictators for refusing to enforce unconstitutional law, or if you could call them a law, policy of his. They're refusing to enforce these against their citizens, and he's calling these police officers dictators. I don't think Cuomo knows what it means. It's the pot calling the kettle black, man. He's just way off base. But watch this video.
I believe that law enforcement officer violates his or her constitutional duty. I don't consider them a law enforcement officer, because you don't have the right to pick laws that you think you will enforce, and you don't enforce laws that you don't agree with, right? That's not a law enforcement officer. That's a dictator.
It's interesting. So he's going to call them dictators for not enforcing things against the citizens that are unconstitutional, that would violate their civil rights, that would violate their constitutional rights, that would violate their rights to peaceably assemble, which is constitutionally protected. Very much so. And if you watch this video, you'll see in this video, he equates them refusing to enforce this law or rule or policy or executive order, whatever the hell it is. It's not real because it hasn't gone through legislation and it's unconstitutional. But he equates it to them saying, well, I don't want to enforce these drug laws. So I'm not going to do it. That's just a bad comparison, Cuomo. You know, for someone that has reached this level of power in our government, you would expect a little bit more intelligence from you to at least pick a more comparable comparison. I mean, to compare your right to peaceably assemble to your right to do drugs, that's just idiotic, man. The Constitution protects our right as American citizens to peaceably assemble. It doesn't say protest. It doesn't have to be a protest. You can call it that, though. I mean, they seem to be okay with you protesting now, but they don't want you to have a dinner with 10 people. But the Constitution protects it. That is a constitutional right. That it's a what do they say? It's a God-given right that is protected by the Constitution, so that our government, when it tries to get too powerful, too big for its britches, it can't come in and say nope, because it's protected. However, doing drugs is not constitutionally protected. Dealing drugs is not constitutionally protected. Any sort of drug enforcement laws, whether or not I agree with them, doesn't matter in this particular scenario. It's just that they are not a constitutionally protected right. It's not a right that's protected at all. And it's gone through legislation. Now, whether or not I agree with the drug enforcement laws, that's a totally different thing. But I can understand that those are not rights that are protected by the Constitution. So to compare your right to peaceably assemble to doing drugs is just a crappy comparison on Cuomo's part. And it's really reaching. Like, let me try to find the thing I can think of worse that affects people that would just make these cops look horrible. People doing drugs. That's a bad grab, man. Get it together, Cuomo. Like, start acting like you care for the American people, that you care for the people of New York, that you care for, protecting their civil liberties, their rights, their freedoms, their businesses, their ability to earn money and provide for their families, their ability to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, so they can, so they can go see their friends and family. Because what's life? It's not worth living if you can't be around the people that you love. So Cuomo, get it together, man. That's all I gotta say. Thanks a lot. Oh, almost forgot. Thanks a lot. This is Alex with LWS Update. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Every subscription matters. Every time you share, it's big for us because we're just growing. So please do so. And we'll see you on the next video. We should have another one coming up about the vaccine and some of the immunities being granted by the government. So check that out. It'll be up later today. And we'll see you there. Thanks.